Welcome to a Community Foundation of Middlesex County pop-up grant video. Today we are so excited and honored to have Steve Nisbet, the president and co-founder of Shields and Stripes, our latest pop-up grant recipient. So congratulations, Steve.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for
Thank
having
you
me
for
on.
joining us today. And of course, we want to thank Wheelan Engineering for making this pop-up grant possible. But really, we're really excited to hear more about Shields and Stripes and what the organization does. And you are a co-founder, so we definitely want to hear your story.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks again for having me on here. And I appreciate the grants tremendously. Every little bit helps and goes a long way. So Shields and Stripes was founded in 2021. That was founded by me and a doctor of occupational therapy. I spent about 16 years in the Air Force as a special operator, doing a job called pararescue, or a PJ for short is what we're commonly called. And so if you think of that job, if you can imagine what a SEAL does as far as jumping out of planes, flying helicopters, and shooting guns and whatnot, but also throwing on medical stuff. So our primary job is to go rescue and recover down and injured personnel, whether it was primarily pilots, but it turned into pretty much everybody. So over that period of 16 years that I spent in the Air Force, I deployed 10 times. And those deployment locations were to Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, East Africa. So fought just about every terrorist organization on the planet and treated a lot of people. And so over that time period, I started really experiencing some significant signs and symptoms of PTSD that I wasn't recognizing. And I thought it was just normal for me until one point where I started losing a lot of memory. There's people that I'd known for a decade, and I couldn't remember their names or who they were. I just recognized them. And then one day, my wife had actually sat me down and told me that my kids, the two boys that I had, or that I have, and I have a third right now too. But the two boys, they were 7 and 9 at the time, and she told me that they were scared of me, and so that
Yeah.
was a really a really strong kick to the gut, and it hurt quite a bit. And so I thought, okay, maybe there is something wrong, and sought out the services and the resources that were supplied at our unit. So this time I went to them and said, hey, what is PTSD? What does it look like? Because I don't have what you see on TV. You know, wake up with like sweating and having these wild flashbacks. I feel like I'm normal, and did some cognitive testing and did really well at that, except for one area, which is attentiveness and some other things. And they said, well, you actually have some pretty severe PTSD, and you need to start some therapy. So I started some therapy and started to enjoy my job again. I was the team leader of a group of guys. We set up a training trip to Idaho, Boise, Idaho, and part of the job was to do mountain rescue. So we know how to rock climb and set up rope systems and things like that. Very simple trip. We had climbed up a 70-foot face. Our guys were about to start a rappel. First guy gets down safely, going through some instruction, and then the second guy starts his rappel, and the anchor, the rope that was put into the rock, the anchor or the rock exploded and failed. So the rope collapsed and fell. And so the guy that was on the rope, he got about halfway down and he fell about 30 feet. And there was one of our other guys, one of my teammates at the top, and the weight of the guy falling pulled the other one off the top. So he
Oh
fell.
my gosh.
Yeah. So
Wow.
impacted the impacted the ground below. Excuse me. And ultimately, the four of us that were there treated him, but he passed away there on um, pretty much on impact. And I treated a lot of teammates in my past and lost a lot of friends, but this one was very different. And this really compounded the PTSD I was experiencing and put me in a depression. And it's where I ultimately ended up pursuing a medical retirement with a diagnosis of PTSD. And I leaned on those resources again that I described earlier in our unit. Well, with the realization that I was going to lose those and I was going to be stuck to the VA system, I started looking around at other options that were available, that were foundations, and nothing really hit the mark of what I was used to receiving. So I thought I need to create something that replicates what helped me so much and helped my team, and kept, a lot of my team members from taking their own lives. So started looking around to see who had the similar passions, and that's when I came across Jennifer Byrne, and she's a doctor with a company on the side that does something similar. And I asked her, "Hey, will you start this foundation with me so that we can start treating people, specifically veterans and first responders?" Because my dad spent 30 years in law enforcement, and he suffered a lot of the same symptoms that he didn't realize he had. And now both of us looking back, we have the exact same symptoms of PTSD. So I wanted to bring those services to those individuals who never had it, who never knew it existed, and hopefully attack the suicide crisis that's plaguing our heroes today. So partnered with an organization called Exos, which is a pro performance gym, typically works with NFL, MLB, and MLS athletes, so pro athletes. Asked them if we could use their gym and their facility to handle the strength conditioning, the dietitian, the physical therapy, pretty much all things physical. And then we bring in psychologists. So we take care of the cognitive and mental psych component. So their facility is in Phoenix, Arizona, and Pensacola, Florida. So we fly our individuals, our veterans and first responders. We fly them to those places, Phoenix and Pensacola. They stay in a resort hotel, so it's 3 weeks in person when they're staying there. They get the strength conditioning program, physical therapy, diet, nutrition plan, meals made on site, and then they get psych therapy in the afternoons, individual and group therapy. When they leave there, they'll do another 9 weeks of telehealth, and it's important that we reinforce what they learned in person and bring in and incorporate the families, because as I described in my story, like those are who see it first. The families are the ones that notice these big changes first, and to us who are out there, doing our duties, it's normal to us. It's just a normal day. So we incorporate the families so that that recovery is not just an individual; it's a whole family experience.
That's remarkable, Steve.
Yeah.
Really, like
Thank you.
truly. And so do people, and I know you've just sort of, you're a newer organization, having just started in 2021. How many people have been through your program so far?
We just finished our last cohort last month, and so we've had 26 individuals go through the cohort so far. We have another one planned for 7 August, so this grant will definitely help pay for some of those expenses that they're going to incur. We're going through the applications right now, and just to give you a sense of how many there are, we've got 200 plus people that are waiting.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Waiting to go through this particular program that we put on. And right now, the funds is our limiting factor.
Yeah.
So it does cost about $15,000 to put an individual through the program. But every single little bit helps. I don't get paid out of it. We're all volunteers out of this, so it all goes towards the individual and making sure that they get the care that they deserve and they've earned. But yeah, so we have 2 cohorts a year right now. But if we had the funding that we're now eventually starting to get to, we can run up to 12 cohorts a year and ideally help 96 folks a year.
Wow, that's incredible.
Steve, that's amazing. And thank you so much for your service to our country, and also for sharing your story. What you're doing is amazing, helping others. It really is.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So are your applicants from all around the country, or how are people finding you right now? I mean, we were really lucky. We had a wonderful employee of Wheelan Engineering nominate you, so that's how we learned about you. But how did people find out about you?
Yeah, so initially it was really who was in our network, who was around us that we think that would benefit for something like this. And then the VA caught somebody in the VA, or somebody that writes newsletters there, kind of saw what we were doing and put out a newsletter on us and how we're doing things, and sent it out to pretty much every veteran in the United States. And that increased the application download and interest. So that's how a lot of our folks now are applying, because they saw this newsletter and then they see our social media pages. And then it's just spreading by word of mouth. Individuals looking up our website, Googling PTSD and veterans and law enforcement. And then we were one of the first things that pops up. And I was pretty surprised to hear that. So yeah, so it's national scope. We have people from all over the place applying and looking to come in.
Wow, very impressive. Very
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah.
So
It must be hard to choose the applicants, that you have so many coming through, but you're only able right now to choose so many. That must be really difficult.
Yeah, yeah. So the application process, the individuals would go onto our website, you would hit the apply button, and then it would bring up pretty much a basic form of basic information so that the psychologist will look at it and kind of analyze it. They'll set up an interview, and what they're looking for in that interview or that screening is, does the individual have a substance abuse problem, and are they on the edge of taking their own life right away? Because that's that's not something we take care of. We don't do substance abuse. We're not a detox clinic, and if somebody's about to take their own life, we need somebody that's more readily available that's going to respond right away. So if those are evident, we either connect the dots for resources, or we contact them ourselves and then make sure that that individual is still taken care of. We have paid for individuals to go to detox centers and then come back through our program and our cohorts. But yes, it is a challenge. I don't envy the therapists that do screen these individuals and then have to select which ones um, are appropriate for our cohorts. And I think that's one of the hardest things. I think I filled out an application for a grant, and that it asks that, I mean, what is the best thing and the worst thing? Well, the VA letter was one of the best things for us because it got us attention. It was also one of the worst things because our funding didn't increase, but the demand was there, and now we had to tell a bunch of people not right now. And
yeah.
that's a horrible feeling to say. This person's asking for help. We have the means and the capability to help them. We just don't have the funding to do it. And so that's our biggest challenge. And I said, I don't envy the therapists that do have to do that.
Yeah, that I can't imagine. That has to be incredibly difficult. And you're wonderful to have people who can identify people that are applying and yet need different resources right now. And you actually see that through. It's not just like, oh, that's not what we do, and set them over there. And I think that it's the hardest thing, is to recognize not being able to help everyone, but having already created a resource list or a resource network to make sure that people aren't falling through the cracks, if you can, for all that we can do to help them. So
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of my jobs, is to go out and network with different organizations and different foundations that provide and do great work. We know and we acknowledge and recognize we're not the only ones that do this. We're not the only ones that serve as veterans, and I try to partner with as many organizations as possible to solve this problem. There's such a vast, enormous challenge to solve, that we can't do it alone.
wow.
Wow.
Well, if someone can do it, Steve, you sure are the person. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I feel like remarkable is an understatement drastically, but it really is incredible. And the work that you're doing is amazing, to just, create that network and also bring, those that have served together to also meet like-minded people and, build that network for themselves too, as they work to recover. So it's really amazing. And thank you for taking the time today. We do also want to just thank your nominator, Karen Cooper, for nominating you, because we are so grateful to have had the opportunity to meet you and hear about Shields and Stripes. So thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
And Wheelan Engineering for making this possible. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, and thank you, Karen, for nominating us. That's wonderful.